Revolver. Revolver is not a new game. It came out, I believe, 2 years ago, but I only picked it up at the last Gen Con, and only recently did I get a chance to actually play in it, and I like it very much. Big spoiler for my conclusions here. Revolver is a two-player, non-symmetrical game. It's a card game that captures the spirit of old Western movies, and well, there's several subgenres of Western movies out there. It's not like they're all the same. I think here the game tries to capture, in particular, the spaghetti Western iteration of the genre. You know, those low-budget movies filmed in Spain with American and European actors, and where everybody is bad. The division between good guys and bad guys is extremely volatile. Probably actually the reason why I say that type of Western is a big inspiration is because very often those movies are sort of like over the top. There are crazy situations happening. They are not minimalist, so to speak. And this is an action-packed game. If it were a movie and it has actually a strong cinematic feel to it, it would be a movie with crazy special effects because there's stuff that blows up, sharks are jumped every 5 minutes, but it's fun. It's a fun ride. Now, what is the story about? There is a gang of 16 bad guys. That's a lot of bad guys and gals also, but that is the clan of Jack the Crow Culty. That's the gang that Jack the Crow Culty put together. They robbed a bank, which is up there. It is represented by that card. And now what they're trying to do is to move from location to location, from location card to location card, until they reach the express 315 Express, and if they manage to do that, well, they win the game. Actually, for the Culty player to win the game, all it takes is that Culty himself escapes using the train, so this is the only card that you really need to preserve as the Culty player. Everybody else in your team is expendable, and again, that kind of captures the idea of the old villain that doesn't really care about the members of his gang. He's okay if they die as long as he gets away. Also, there are less people to share the loot with that way. Another way for the Culty player to win the game is to remove all of those 12 tokens from the Mexican border card, and that means, I assume, that that Culty managed to escape to Mexico. I'm not really sure how that works thematically, but and that's pretty much the only thing that I can't figure out thematically. The game is ridiculously thematic, and I like that. I like strong narratives in games. In any case, one or two players will play this gang of expendable criminals led by a very valuable criminal, and the other player will be the good guys and will send an army of deputies, bounty hunters, and other good people to capture the people of the McCulty gang. However, there is not really a way of talking them into turning themselves in and changing their ways of life. So we are in the Old West. The way you capture them is by killing them. So the good guy player, the player that controls the good guys, and the player that will sit on that side of the table and will use that deck, will simply try to kill all of these people, and in particular to kill Culty. But Culty is the last one that can be killed. The members of the gang have numerical ratings on them, and when the good player, the player controlling the good guys, inflicts a casualty on the Culty player, then the Culty player eliminates members of the gang in numerical order from the lowest to the highest. And if two characters have the same value, then the The culty player chooses which one is eliminated. When characters are eliminated, there may be further effects that happen. For example, when this character is eliminated, the culty player discards a card. That icon there means you discard a card. That icon also is present on some cards that the players control, and that means in order to play the card, you need to discard other cards from your hand. So there's a cost for cards that are particularly valuable, and an extra penalty for losing characters that are valuable too. So the game starts in the first location. As you can see, the location has a turn track written on top. You use whatever marker you like and you put it on the number 1 to indicate the first turn in that location. And then the turn marker will move. And again, what the culty player is trying to do is to get on the train alive. Doesn't matter what happens to his gangmates. Each player has a deck of cards. The game is completely non-symmetrical. The two decks are entirely different. And also the turn structure for the two players is slightly different. When it is the cultist player's turn, the player advances the turn marker by 1. You don't do that in turn 1, otherwise you effectively start in turn 2. You will see that also there are some extra spaces to the left of the turn track because there may be card effects that give players an extra turn. In that case, the marker is moved to the left and it may go in that special area. As for the turn structure, very simple. When it is your turn, you draw 2 cards from your deck. This is the deck for the bad guys. You draw 2 cards, you add them to your hand, and then you play cards. There isn't a specific limit to the number of cards that you can play. Some cards are one-shot effects, such as this one. You play it and you kill one character that the good player has put in play. Maybe a deputy, maybe a bounty hunter, a scout, whatever the character is. It is gone and discarded. This is a one-time effect. Then you have cards that generate firepower. They're the ones that have a poker chip symbol in the top left corner of the card. Those cards are placed in the area in which the action is taking place. So right now we're in this area and the players will play cards in that area. Players can only play cards in the present area unless there are specific effects that allow them to place characters, to place cards in different areas. Also, once you move the turn marker to a new area, the cards that are left behind are lost unless you have card effects that allow you to break that rule. What the culty player is trying to do during his turn is to prepare defense, because he knows that the good guys are coming. You robbed a bank, you know something is going to happen. So the culty player during his turn plays cards from his hand on his side of the present location to create a firepower value that is as high as possible. The culty player has a limit of 3 cards. There are 3 cards that he can place in each location, unless, as usual, there are limits. There are rules that allow you to break that. For example, this card doesn't count towards the column limit. The player controlling the good guys does not have the limitation. He can send a full army in a single location, which means that the enemies will be outpowered big time in that location, but then all of those good people will be left behind when the game moves to the next location. So you need to keep your forces available, you need to budget your resources well, especially as the player controlling the good guys, because otherwise you will be left without resources when the game really becomes tough, that is, later in the game. Do not waste too many resources in a location, especially if it is a location where the game is not going to be there for long. For example, the canyon only has 2 standard turns that will take place in there. But this is an idea. The culty player prepares his defense, plays 1 shot cards, and resolves the effects. And, well, that's it for his turn. Then the opponent, the player controlling the good guys, draws 2 cards from the deck, puts them together with his hand of cards, and does the same that he plays. He can play one-shot effects, such as this one, or he can play cards that are, again, generate firepower and are placed in a specific location. And this card, for example, is very powerful. Firepower 3, and you need to discard a card when you play it. Then actually later you may discard a card to move him to the next battlefield, which is really neat because he can move from battlefield to battlefield. That's not something that many people can do. So imagine that the situation now is this one, and we have this. This is how the situation looks at the end of this turn. Actually, there's another cool card that the good guys can use, and it is a block row card. This is a card that only the good guys have, not the bad guys, and they can play it on the side of the opponent in the present location. That simply clutters that area. It occupies a column of that area, and so now the culty player has less available slots to play cards that stay there. In this case, for example, if the culty player did not have this card that allows you to break the rule, that doesn't count towards the limit, then that location would already have reached its limit. The only way for the culty player to play cards there now would be to discard some of those cards to replace them with better ones. In any case, this is the situation. After the good guys have played their cards, the good guys attack. To resolve the attack is quite simple. You total the firepower that the player controlling the good guys has available. In this case, it is 3 and 1. It is a firepower of 4. You compare that with the firepower generated by the bad guys, and that is the firepower on the cards that have been played, that are present there, plus there may be a bonus given by the location. In this case, 1, 1, 1 is 3, and 0 then is a total of 3. 4 versus 3, the good guys have a better firepower. They inflict a casualty on the opponent. So actually during the attack phase, you can only inflict a casualty on the opponent. It doesn't matter if you are outpowering him by 20 points, it's still 1 casualty. Again, this is why you need to budget your resources well. You resolve that, and that you simply move to the next turn, and you repeat the procedure, playing cards, building a defense as the culty player, and trying to figure out what the other player is going to do, and trying to outpower the culty player if you are the good guys. There are a lot of interesting decisions. For example, if you're almost done in a location, you have the choice of spending a lot of resources as the good guy, launching an attack there, or you may just wait a little bit and then you simply use a lot of resources in the next location, in which you may be able to use them for more turns. Some locations work in different ways. For example, the canyon has an excellent defense rating for the culty player, a defense rating of 3. There are only 2 turns that are spent in there. It is unlikely that the good guys will want to send a lot of people inside that canyon where they can be easily ambushed. It is more likely that as the bad guys go through the canyon, the good guys will be building up a good hand, and then they will send a lot of deputies around Buzzer Point, because there will be a lot of turns in which those deputies and bounty hunters, all the good guys, can be used to outpower the bad guys. However, when it gets here, probably the bad guys will try to manipulate the turn sequence, trying to get out of there as soon as possible. For each turn that the good guys do not eliminate one of the bad guys, a marker is removed from the Mexican border. If all of those markers are removed, the culty player wins the game. There are also other effects in the game that may remove markers from there or put markers back. The last card is the train, the last location card is the train. There's another card here, which is Derail the Train, which is not a location. It's a simple reminder of a game option that the culty player has. When the game is in this location here on the train, the culty player can choose to derail the train, to play the card, to spend the card, call it whatever you want. The train is derailed. everything that is around there is destroyed. All the cards played by the good guys and by the bad guys are destroyed, and all of the villains that are still in play are destroyed. But remember, you need to have at least one of them alive to win the game. This guy, Saturate, is an exception. All the villains are destroyed or killed, with the exception of those that you save by playing a card for each. So you can save a villain in that phase by playing a card for each villain that you're saving. And that really gives the final sequence a very cinematic feel. It really gives you the sense that, well, the best is for the end, the most spectacular, crazy stuff happens at the end, and you really have moments of intense tension there. You have heroes that have been left behind that reappear all of a sudden, heroes that seem like we're gonna die and they don't die in the crash because whatever crazy effects. A lot of situations happening. Oh, there is a card in the deck of the good guys that allows you to provoke a stampede, and that is just so thematically awesome. I mean, I'm just gonna give 2 big thumbs up to this game simply because it has that, because it gives you the opportunity to provoke a buffalo stampede, and that destroys, well, a lot of things. How awesome is that? Conclusions. Great game. Really, really a great game, and I'm going to correct myself. A great game that may not be for all gamers. Maybe I should call it a great narrative engine. Maybe I should call it a great thematic immersion in this type of story, of narrative, of cinema. Because the game per se has, well, a lot of luck. You can mitigate that with strategy, but in the end, if you don't get the right cards, you do not get the right cards in your hand. A good thing is that you do not use all of your deck during a single game, so there's replay value there. You do not know what you get. You cannot count cards, but again, that means that all the cards that you need are not even going to be in the game that you're playing right now. So luck factor is there, and that may infuriate some gamers, but on the other hand, I personally do not care. I play a lot of war games, and to me, theme is really the most important thing in a game. I'm okay with sacrificing some of the cleanness, the elegance of the design, as long as the story is strong. Of course, a perfect game has a perfect balance between theme and mechanics, but in the real world, that doesn't always happen. And in this case, I think that what is sacrificed in terms of elegance of gameplay, I don't even know if that's the right word, well, the sacrifice there is completely made up for by the awesome feeling that you have to experience this story. Crazy things happen, there are cliffhangers from card to card, there are exciting moments, one surprise after the other. The story is strong, the action is continuous. This is really an action-packed ride in this fictional world which vaguely resembles the old American West, but in a certain way it really is a sort of like parallel world of adventure, mystery, wonder, crazy actions, heroic people, completely crazy cruelty on the part of the bad guys. A lot of stuff packed in a single game. Again, not the most elegant design out there, but for a non-symmetrical game, I think it really achieves what it's trying to achieve. It is fun to play, which is always the most important thing. It has a lot of expansions that already came out. There is even a Revolver 2. Personally, I enjoy Revolver very much. It is very likely that I will explore the expansions and possibly also the second chapter of the game in the future. Revolver by Mark Chaplin, published by Stronghold Games. Fun. Definitely a lot of fun if you do not mind a little bit of luck thrown into your plans here and there.